Well, hello again, and we have another leadership lesson. And today I have a very special friend, someone who, Donnie, I actually joined the Jaycees in June of 1983, which was 1 year after you were national president. So I didn't get to serve with you then, but I met you on the foundation board. And of course, I have a lot of friends of mine who are close friends of yours, Benny Ellerby, Diane Hopper, Brand Daniel, Nathan Pridgeon was somebody who spoke very highly of you. And again, this is a big honor. You're a graduate of Louisiana Tech. I was not aware, but you're a Tau Kappa Epsilon, so a teak. I'm in a fraternity. I was in a fraternity too, so I was a Pi Kappa Phi. So you're a Greek, so I guess that was part of the special chemistry. Jones Brother, which is a general construction company, started by your dad and your uncle, I believe. You became president of that. You were the 13th mayor of Bossier City. And something else I didn't know until you sent me the bio was when you were elected in Phoenix, Arizona, I think is where it was. You were elected on the 42nd ballot. I can't even imagine that. But I wanted to speak to, I've got a few questions of you. And the first is, how did Jaycees prepare you for the role you had in politics as the mayor of Bossier City?
Bill, my family had been involved in politics from my grandfather to my uncles, and I was just expected. We all were expected to serve in some capacity.
Yeah.
Even that continues today with some of my cousins. And we're, um, you know, all the preparation that you have in your life uh, comes down to seizing opportunities when they present themselves. And that would they say, uh, luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of good luck and right place, right time. And so the politics didn't scare me. My grandfather had prepared me for a lot of things. And uh, so, it was not as difficult actually as some days in the JC headquarters building. So, uh, but it was an enjoyable time. I did that for 2 terms, and it was time to go to work. I mean,
Yeah.
I was 40 years old. I was elected when I was 32. I left Tulsa in July of '83, and when I came home, less than 30 days after I arrived, the current mayor who had just started his term, had passed away. And some old JCs in their 50s and 60s showed up and said, "We're going to have a dinner for you since you're back home. We'd like, you know, plan on attending." And I was there, and there were 52 guys. Well, I knew something was up, and each one of them walked up and put $1,000 on the table and said, "That's your starting money for your next campaign. You need to be running for mayor here in about 2 days." And so I never had, 30 days vacation or anything. I was in a campaign.
And that was a hotly contested race from what I read, right?
It was, yeah. But yeah, I ran against two other people, and I won a primary. So saved everybody a lot of time and money. So, but it worked out. It worked out fine. Yeah.
I want to ask you, what specific skills, whether it was public speaking or organizational management, consensus building, did you develop in your JC roles that you found immediately applicable when you became mayor of Bossier City?
The biggest thing you learn in the JCs is that you cannot please everyone.
Right.
That, people have different goals, they have different motivations, and you have to pick out what's best for the organization and for the event that's in front of you. But those skills, translate into everything that we do in business. And in politics and everything else. You know, it takes those three things to make a situation workable, and that proves you to be a good manager. You have to have people skills. You know, you have to have the ability to work with people in large groups, small groups, try to get them forged into one direction. Well, you learn that in the JCs. I mean, that's about one of the finest things you can get from a local chapter to a state organization to a national organization.
Right.
You know, and the second thing you have to have is technical skills. You have to know your product. You have to know what you're selling. Whatever it is, you know, you're doing, you have to know it front and back. But that third part is the part that you really pick up, or I did, in the JCs, and it translated into politics and mostly into business. And that's that skill called conceptual skill, and the ability to put all the pieces together, to make them work, and to form a mosaic with all those pieces that are random and don't seem to fit anywhere or whatever. Well, whoever can put all those pieces together and make something happen with it is rewarded as a good manager or an elected official, or, you know, as a business person. So I think those are the three things, probably the JCs, whether I had any of them or not, they certainly honed them to a sharp edge. So it was
Don,
worthwhile.
both of us served as a local president, state president, and national president. How did your leadership style change from each position?
Part of it had to be maturity. You know, I was really young compared to the presidents before me. Most of the guys were 35 and had aged out by the time their term was over. They were elected, they were 34, 35. I was 31, and I finished my term when I was 32. So I learned patience. I learned, I got, and with each one of those positions, local, state, and national, you gain confidence at each level that your decision making was good and that you were listening to what was going on around you. Didn't matter what you were seeing. You know, we have a saying in Louisiana politics: it doesn't matter what you read, doesn't matter what you hear, and it doesn't even matter what you see. That's not what's really happening. You know, something else is happening. And so, you know, you pick up all that confidence along the way, and then you learn that there's a need to finish, and you have to learn push to some degree to get to a finish with every one of those steps, every one of those organizations. And that's a key thing to business, as you well know.
Yeah. I want to talk about the 42 ballots, because let me just share with you. I had a 3-person race when I ran in Portland, Oregon, and Charlie Madsen was my political advisor and told me we got to win on the first ballot, because we're only going to slip votes. We're not going to gain them. And so we won on the first ballot. And I can't remember how long it took, but I'm thinking it was like a 2-hour process to work our way through, you know, Alaska to Wyoming. So I can't even imagine 42 ballots. How did you prepare mentally and physically, and how long did that take?
2.5 days.
Oh my gosh.
And we were in Phoenix. I had the best campaign organization you could ever imagine. They had motorhomes there with my changes of clothes that would go on for days. I would take a shower and change into a different suit, different shoes. I mean, they had me rotating every 4 to 6 hours. We knew it was, our election depended on something entirely different than yours, the opposite. We had to stop somebody from winning on the first ballot. And what Charlie told you was exactly right, because once we stopped them on the first ballot, then as time went on, we picked up more and more. And it was the state of Louisiana helped me a lot. We were friends with the governor and friends with other people. They flew in seafood and other things for the state's party. Dixie Beer in New Orleans gave us all the Dixie Beer for the state's party. I mean, the whole campaign was really aided by a lot of people that cared about somebody being elected from Louisiana. And I never had to worry about raising money. It came. I traveled to every state that the year as a national vice president at least 4 times. And I went to my assigned states like Indiana almost 10 times. So I didn't hesitate to go and travel and meet people. And we broke off a few votes over here and turned a state over there, and things went on and on. But it was, for what everybody talks about, I never felt that. Mm-hmm. I always knew that we were going to win.
Yeah.
And I never doubted the outcome. It just, okay, it's going to take a while. All you have to do is just stick with it. And, toughest guy's going to come out of this. So you need to be the toughest guy and just stay with it. So
Charlie Mattson, again, my political advisor, told me to prepare my acceptance speech and my concession speech. And then as the balloting started, he said, "You've got both speeches." I said, "No, I got one because I ain't going to lose."
There you go.
And I never thought I would.
You don't think that's an option. And if you feel that there's an option out there, I mean, I think that undermines your ability to push it over the finish line.
Yeah.
So I never entertained the thought that we were going to lose. I always felt like we were going to win, despite the fact we were running against Buzz Schultz from Virginia and Wayne Burchett from California. And here we were in little Louisiana in the middle. So, but it all came through in the end.
You talked about the strong support of Louisiana. I'm from South Carolina, and my closest friends and mentors were Georgia and Louisiana, and the closest presidents I was close to, Ronnie Smith in Georgia and Diane Hopper in Louisiana, and to this day, Benny Ellerby has always been somebody he's not only advised me, he's protected me, he's been my confidant, he's been there every step of the way, and I'm sure that's one of the ones. That was a young pup that came along after you that I'm sure you kind of guided him on his way.
Actually, Benny was state president the year before me.
Oh, really?
He was. And I followed Benny as state president.
Oh, you followed Benny?
And won a Covelli. And I was an MVP after him and won a Covelli. Yeah, Benny actually was a year ahead of me in Jaycees.
Well, love Benny Ellerby. I used to go around and tell JC chapters that Jaycees is the only organization you can be part of that goes out, you do a project and you lose money and we give you a plaque.
That's it.
So my question is what kind of mistakes did you make maybe as a JC that really paid dividends? It turned out to be a valuable lesson in your professional and political career.
I don't think I would characterize any of that as a mistake. I'll tell you what I made a mistake doing. The biggest mistake I made in the Jaycees, I should have led opposition to folding the JC Women organization so quickly.
Right.
I should have stopped that. And but I was past chairman of the board, and the tradition was after you'd served your term, you did not interfere with the current president's decisions, whatever. I opposed it, but I kept my mouth shut, and I regret that to this day. I think if we would have handled the the JC Women organization differently, that our JC organization would have gained some understanding of what they had to deal with as the women membership situation became a reality. We should have, I should have stood up and led some opposition to folding the women's organization up so quickly. And I said something to Tommy Todd about it. I thought that it was a mistake, and I left it at that. And to this day, I regret that, because I think everything moved too quickly, and we didn't have time to sort things out. But I'll tell you, immediately the impacts were felt. Within 12 months, the next national convention, the registration for the convention was down 3,000 people.
Right.
Because there was no women organization. And, if you're a leadership training organization, if that's one of the cornerstones of your triangle, you're sitting there wondering, well, why did we fold up an organization that had their own national president, their own national officers, state organizations? We were training twice as many people to be leaders.
Right.
And we collapsed it into one, and then we lost hundreds of thousands of members over it. So yes, that's my regret, Bill. It really is.
Don, a lot of people think we merged the two organizations, and we did not. And I don't remember, but I think they had about 150, 175,000 women.
My number's 50,000.
50,000. Okay.
50,000. They had 300 chapters, but they had about 50,000 members. And they, but they were the darling of St. Jude.
Yeah,
we were the JCs were involved with muscular dystrophy because Jerry Lewis had put us on the telethon year after year after year and gave us national exposure, and we stayed with the muscular dystrophy. But the JC women went to St. Jude. Danny Thomas was at national conventions because of the JC women, not because of the JCs.
I can't speak nationally, but I know in Rock Hill, South Carolina, less than 10% of the women ever joined the men's organization or our organization, because they said, that's not our organization. And so those JC women or JCettes, whatever you want to call them, walked away.
They did. And to this day, I see women's only organizations that are 100 years old. The Women's Department Club, all these different, they wanted their own organization, and we should have left them alone.
Yeah.
And the women that wanted to join the JCs because of business reasons or career moves, whatever, that's fine. They were welcome. Yeah. The women that wanted to stay in an all-women's organization, we should have let them alone and let them do that. I think we have paid the big price for that mistake, Bill.
Don, you've touched on, St. Jude's and March of Dimes, MDA were all really big. Community service, that's what we were. We were a leadership training through community service. In your view, what role does community service play in shaping effective leaders in any community?
In my chapter in Bossier City, Louisiana, we're a sister city to Shreveport. So in our metro area, we have about 350,000 people. Mm-hmm. We had of course, in Louisiana, we have parishes. We don't have counties. So you understand. In our parish governments, on both sides of the river, that's our dividing line between Shreveport and Bossier, two different parishes. We had people on the school board. Mm-hmm. We had people in the parish commission. We had people on the JCs on the city council. We had every organization or every unit of government had not just current day JCs, they had JCs of years past. And they had all done projects to help in their community, and they learned, and therefore they got invested in their own community and said, you know what, this is important to me. I think, I might run for school board after doing this JC project that showed me a need over here with school kids, or this parish commission seat that comes available. But Bill, and then we had at one time about a third of the members of the state legislature were JCs, and we had we had young guys there, and then in the mayor's positions of the top 7 cities in Louisiana, 4 of them were either current or just past JCs with me.
Right.
It was all that community service energized you into caring about where you lived and what you could do to make it a better place. And yes, did you become a leader because of that? Sure you did. And then you took those experiences and moved on and helped in other ways. It was really good to watch that happen.
Yeah. I'm very grateful. Benny Ellerby brought me on the foundation board, which is my chance to meet you. I had heard all the stories, and then I got a chance to really meet you and work with you on the JC Foundation. My question to you is how do you think the mission has changed for the junior chamber? And is there still a need for the junior chamber in today's society?
I think the need exists more than ever. We have lost our spirit of volunteerism in America. You can't find too many organizations that are prospering that depend on volunteer efforts. It's not just the JCs. Whether it's the Kiwanis or the Lions Club or the Rotary Club, everybody's changed their ways to try to attract members to survive. Over time, we've become very selfish with our personal time. And we all had work obligations. We had different career moves we had to make. But we were willing to give something back and invest in our communities and volunteer to do certain things. You see that even in churches.
Right.
Churches are suffering with lack of volunteers in church projects. It's not just civic organizations that are going through it. So, yes, is something like the JCs needed? You sure? Because somewhere out there, I don't know what year, but there is a generation that will care again, care enough. I'm not saying the people of today, the millennials and the Gen X and don't care about things, but it's more self-centered,
right?
And it is whole community vision.
But they're not joiners the way we were, and they're not investing in their community. They may be investing in themselves, but not in their community.
Bill, when I was national president, we did a thing called Future Directions. And so back in the day, there were big 8 accounting firms. And then one of the names, Arthur Anderson, was one of the big firms. And we hired Arthur Anderson to do a futurist view of the JC organization. What was going to happen? Where would we be 10 years, 15 years, 20 years from now? Everything that has happened was predicted by them over the very thing, the word that you just used, joiners. When they gave their report, they said your membership's going to decline severely. You're going to be challenged to stay active or stay alive as an actual organization, but you won't be alone. It'll be most volunteer organizations. And let me tell you why. The generations that are coming forth, they don't join the Cub Scouts. They don't join the Boy Scouts. They're not members of the Key Club in high school. They're not members of fraternity in college. They don't join things. They're more selfish with their time. They invested in their family. I'm not going to call that selfish, but they don't have a bigger vision than what is important to them at the moment.
Right.
And that's going to cause all the volunteer organizations to suffer. And there it is. It's happened. And so I hold hope that there is a generation out there. Barry Kennedy, who was national president a few years before me, and was just retired as executive of the Nebraska Chambers of Commerce and Industry, believes this too. He and I have discussed this several times. That he says there's a generation that's about 15 years away that would perhaps fill these shoes. Well, so that's where I think the foundation comes in. I think we need to preserve the JC name and its trademarks and its finances to the point that when that generation that wants to do something all the way and volunteer and be what you and I remember JCs being, that we have some resources to help them.
Yep.
I don't think we're abandoning the current JC movement. We're trying to help them see things themselves. And I have some confidence that this current leadership may have a good shot at trying to restore some of that attitude. I think they're going to be trying to overcome a generational problem, though. And they'll have to do more convincing of their members than you and I ever had to. So that's where I think the foundation's need is that we need to be there and be in place so that when they're ready, we're ready to go again, that we've got the resources to assist.
Have you ever read the book Bowling Alone?
I have.
Bowling Alone, and then of course he had a follow-up to that, talked about how everything's on a pendulum. And the generation that are in high schools today, this is what I was reading from him, it is more like my grandfather's generation that actually my great grandfather's generation that actually started many of the organizations like Optimus and JCs and Kiwanis. They were all started around the same time, right after World War I. And so this generation is that pendulum, and it will swing back if we're patient. There will be a generation that believes in, once again, going out there and rebuilding our communities.
Yes. And I think that's the role of the foundation, is to be prepared to help them when that time comes.
Let me ask you a question. Speaking to that, for young people today, 21 to 39 specifically, what advice would you have if they wanted to get involved in their community, either in a civic club or running for office? What advice would you give them for getting started? What are the first steps?
Well, it goes back to those three things. You have to have people skills.
Right.
But they're going to have to get involved, meet people through their church, through their walking the streets, introducing themselves, through their business, whatever. They're going to have to acquire a technical skill, and that is have a product that they're wanting to sell, or that they think people will want to buy or buy into an idea. But that conceptual skill that is what's lacking, Bill.
Right.
There's pieces out there that real leaders are able to pull those pieces together and try to and build a unit, a working machine. And so, the first of all, the group that exists today is much better educated than previous generations. They don't have an excuse for not knowing.
Right.
They have more tools. My God, I wish we had had a cell phone or email or
social media.
Imagine what we could have done with that. But maybe that is one of the enemies too.
Yes.
That people into a world that's self-serving and self-centered, and they don't have to have communication skills. They don't have to go out there and present themselves. So until people are willing to do a one-on-one, face-to-face with people, it's going to be hard to get up and try to get a campaign going or whatever. They can run a media campaign. They can do all that. Sooner or later, you have to go to that microphone.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, you're going to have to make a speech. You have to present yourself. Sooner or later, you're going to have to walk that crowd and shake those hands.
Yeah.
You better be able to present yourself correctly and have the right ideas. And you won't have those right ideas unless you know what the voters are thinking.
Yeah. Don, looking back on that year as your national president, what do you consider to be maybe your greatest success? And how did that define maybe your political career in Bossier City?
Well, we were battled in 14 states over the women membership issue. A little known fact, I was intent on getting us to the Supreme Court. That's what our membership had decided in a national convention, that they would not accept anything other than the ruling from the U.S. Supreme Court that said we had to admit women members, and that's when we would accept them. So pushing something that would cause that was important. Trying to figure out who could cause that to happen. We were in the Court of Appeals in about 7 states. We were in litigation in 14 states in federal court, but we were in the appeals court in 7 of them. So I was sent to do something that out of character, perhaps, in many ways. I went to the Attorney General of the state of Minnesota, Hubert Humphrey III, and intentionally went there to make him mad that he had the command presence and he had the political power to push our case to the U.S. Supreme Court. And shortly after my visit there in the state capitol in Minnesota and our boisterous meeting that didn't go well in his eyes, then things moved forward, and our attorney said that, hallelujah, we were going to the U.S. Supreme Court for the ruling. And it took about 1.5 years after that to get the final verdict. But, we had spent $2.5 million in legal fees. Our organization was in disarray in many places. I was told I had to swear in women members in Palo Alto and New Orleans and other places. So it was a difficult time, but then it was all this indecision, and our members were caught in that, and they'd get embroiled in that. And it's hard to sell your product when you have misgivings about the quality of it.
Yeah.
So it was time to get that answered.
And I think one of the Supreme Court justices was a JC that had recused himself, right?
Yes. Yes. By the way, Hubert Humphrey Sr., one of the comments I made, said, your father was trained as a Louisiana lawyer, and he was in the Jaycees. I don't think he'd like this situation. Hubert Humphrey graduated from the LSU Law School.
Yeah.
He was from Minnesota, but he graduated from the LSU Law School. So it just, we had people everywhere, Bill. I mean, we had people at every level of government, and they were leaders in business and industry. And when we needed things, we could get them, from the board members of the Sears and Roebuck to J.C. Penney board members. We had most of the national banks were some of our past presidents. I mean, we had a lot of influence in a lot of places. And it always helped us when we needed to get a national sponsor
Yep.
For a project or a program. It was there.
Yeah. Don, let me ask you a question. If you could go back and give advice to that young Don Jones, who's a local chapter president in Bossier City, Louisiana, what advice would you give that guy today?
Be true to yourself. You know what's right. Don't let anybody get in the way. And you may have to be. I would tell him he may have to be a little more patient than what your makeup back then as a young guy would have allowed. But what's that thing? To thine own self be true.
Yeah.
You know what's right, and you know what's going to work based on the people that you have to work with.
Yeah.
And I think that's something I wish I had learned early.
Well, Don, I'm grateful that Benny brought me on the foundation board, and I served with you for quite a few years on the foundation board. You're continuing to do that, continuing to make an impact in our organization, preserving that legacy. So thank you for doing that. And I want to also thank you for going up to Clemson, South Carolina, and ruining Dabo's day and sending Clemson on this trajectory. Now, my Gamecocks aren't doing much better. So when we come down there to Baton Rouge, I hope you guys take it easy on the Cox this year.
You think we'll treat you better?
No,
well,
I don't think you will, but
I wouldn't count on it. Somewhere on Saturday night, things will go live and there won't be anybody controlling what happens.
Well, LSU has always had an extremely good football team and an extremely good baseball team, but I want to thank you. Thank you very much. I didn't serve with you. Again, you were national president a year before I even came on the scene, but I heard the stories. Your legend. You know, one of my favorite John Wayne movie is The Man That Shot Liberty Valance. And it was when the legend becomes fact, print the legend, and you're the legend. So thank you so very much for everything you've done at Jaycees.
I had so many great friends there in South Carolina: Hank Owen and Frank Dixon and Nathan, of course, and Robbie today, and just really glad to get to know you, Bill. Thank you for all those compliments.
Don, thank you for everything you've done in Junior Chamber, and good luck.
Thank you, Bill. Same to you.
Good night.